Hi, my name is Andrea Bourgeois, and I've been so inspired by all of the comments and all of the stories in this Bible study. Brittany and Addie, this morning, I just thought, Lord, I want to share my story. And I kept hearing, not yet. I was like, okay. And so I got an email today from my publisher. So I have two books that are coming out. I have a Bible study called Just Breathe coming out in January, and pre-sales are in December. And then I have another one coming out in March called Anchor My Soul. And Anchor My Soul is a collection of 25 women and their pain into purpose, their stories, their testimonies, and how God anchors our soul in the hardest of times. And when we're weathering the storm of life, he just pulls us through. And so like I'm shaking. I'm so nervous. This is so silly. So anyway, my publisher sent me an email, and we're going back and forth with revisions and stuff. And I haven't read any of this since September, because I wrote most of this story, all the devotion, the intro, in my chapter during Hurricane Laura, like after the destruction. That's a whole nother testimony video I'll have to share. But I forgot what I had written for my chapter, and it is my story. So I want to read it. And one day, maybe you'll get to read it in a book with in March when it comes out, if you want. But you get a glimpse of my story, and I don't know. I think this will be easier for me to read it than to say it, because I'm better at putting my words on paper than I am voicing them. So I have it titled, Eye of the Storm. I walked with suitcases hand in hand up my parents' driveway, with the sunlight ricocheting off their tin roof as I watched the flowers disappear between the white picket fence. I was rehearsing my words over and over, with that gut-wrenching stomach ache, forcing my body to shake and tremble. When I walked up the back stairs and opened the door, Mom and Dad were standing there. I couldn't get the words out. I just stood there and shrugged my shoulders as tears began to stream across my face. I was 23 years old. My life was slipping through my fingertips, and I couldn't grasp my life for anything. My marriage was over. I didn't have anywhere else to go. All my dreams had shattered before my eyes, and the person I loved didn't want me anymore. He had picked someone else. I was broken. I was torn. I was embarrassed. I was afraid. I was lonely. I was completely shattered to my core. There were many of nights I laid in my parents' guest room in their pencil post bed with a Bible and tears streaming from my face. I was paralyzed. The pain in my heart was unbearable on some days. That's when my mom took me running with her for the first time since I was a kid in a neighborhood not far from our house. I remembered running with my iPod, playing the David Crowder Band album, Can You Hear Us, and Illuminate on repeat. The payment became a battlefield where I poured out my heart to God. It was a release in my mind to run wild with Jesus. And somewhere between the strides and the road that my feet touched, I met Jesus on a different level than I had known him before. Reading my Bible and the fundamentals of my relationship with Christ is what it is today, because I got face to face with him in my despair. At the end of my Jesus years of restoration and discovery of who God was molding me into, I went to Belize on a mission trip. One night, the wind was picking up as I stood on the rooftop balcony overlooking the Gulf Coast. I stretched my arms out like Kate in Titanic, and I stood there with my eyes closed, feeling the wind run through my fingertips and my hair. And I told the Lord right there in that moment, I trust you, and I'm ready for what's next. I knew all the heartache and the pain I experienced was needed so that God could use me in a mighty way. He needed me to be this new version of me for what was ahead. Within 6 months of my romantic Kate and Jack moment, I was falling in love with a man God had set aside for just me. Kindred spirits and patched up hearts with walls built for protection were melting for one another that summer. He was my dear friend's brother. Carrie had been trying to play matchmaker for a few years, but she knew we both needed time to heal. Brian and I married 2 years later, Easter weekend, with yellow flowers and lemons all throughout my parents' new home in their backyard in Pergola. Now, at this point, my sister-in-law had been diagnosed with a rare liver cancer for over 7 years. The year Brian and I got married began the next painful chapters in my life as we watched her cancer deteriorate her earthen vessel over the next 2 years. The ups and downs of our emotional roller coaster can't even be put into words to justify what our family went through. She left behind a husband, a son, a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister-in-law, and as well as many friends and other family members. The pain I watched and lived after her passing is so hard to describe to give it justice. The hole she left is indescribable. Grief came in like a storm brewing in the Gulf, only to sweep in full destruction over us in its path. The hole in our family remains empty today. The memories of her smile and her laugh is what keeps us together at times as we strive to keep her memory alive. For our son to know what kind of aunt he had, and for her own son to know how special he is because his mother loved him so much. Sitting at a table in the middle of a room, setting boundaries and making amends was the least likely place we'd find ourselves as a family 2 years after she had passed. Grief is ugly. It's raw. And it's real. But it's also where Jesus is alive. It's also the place where our hearts are restored and renewed by his mighty power. And it's the place where true healing takes place. Those years of grief were also full of deep despair and desires for Brian and I to become parents. The waiting period God allowed for us to endure during those years pierced me directly in the heart with my hands tied behind my back. I remembered getting to a place of desperation to become a mother. But what shifted my focus was when God posed the question, will you still love me if the answer is no? I had to search deep within my bones to love the Lord confidently and wholeheartedly. I had to say, yes, Lord, I will love and I will serve you with all of my heart, even if the answer is no. That was one of the hardest seasons for me. The only way I could be joyful was to allow God to fill that void and to fill my heart with all of him. The following Easter weekend, I found myself riding on the back of a gasoline motorized golf cart with dust flying out behind the wheels as we winded down our sandy road to our condo. Brian and I had gone to this exact place for our honeymoon 5 years prior, but this time his mom and dad sat among us. I had loved Belize so much for my mission trip Titanic experience that I convinced Brian to go with me on our honeymoon. And now, as our family of 4 had to relearn how to do life, without Carrie, we took a trip to celebrate the miraculous healing and restoration that God had did in our family. On a boat out in the clearest, bluest water I've ever seen, I heard our family laugh again. It's truly amazing to witness God's power and faithfulness. The faithfulness and the power of God, it was yet again revealed and celebrated 2 months after our trip to Belize with 2 blue lines on a stick. Our son is our rainbow. He's living proof of our God's faithfulness to us. And he is our constant reminder to me that if he can do it with pain, he will do it again. And the devotion part reads Psalm 46, 1-3, and 10-11. Our Heavenly Father is the eye of our storms of life, as he is the I am that is the center of our lives, our worlds, our desires, our needs, and our futures. When the storms of life are raging, he's the peace in the middle of the chaos. In a hurricane, the wind and rain move in a counterclockwise motion, creating an actual center of the storm that is calm without any wind and rain. The eye wall, the innermost layer of a hurricane right next to the eye, is the most powerful and most destructive of all the winds. It demolishes anything in its path. Our God is right next to us in the middle of whatever storm we find ourselves within. We find ourselves within an arm's reach, with us falling apart and being knocked down. He allows the storms of life to occur because he knows how his love can be displayed through it, how his power will be used for his glory because of it, and how his mercy will be received after it. God is our refuge and our strength and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. God is our refuge. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations, and I will be exalted in earth. And God is our peace in the middle of chaos. He is the calm and stillness in our hearts that our souls crave. Do you feel a blanket of peace over you? Can you see his hand in the chaos around you? Are you able to feel his presence when everything around is falling apart? Cry out to the Lord and be still and rest in his promises that he's our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. So many things I wanted to say while I was reading it, but as we're working on day 5, week 1, and then reading about Job and reading about Abraham and Sarah, their story is what got me through our infertility and the waiting game. And during the grief process of what our family went through, we used to say, I ain't trying to be Job. Like we wanted a t-shirt that said that. But I don't know. I just wanted to share. And I don't know. As I was reading over what I had written back in September. I'd forgotten exactly what I had said. And it's like that moment when the Lord's like, say it. This is what you say. This is the story that you will tell. This is your testimony. Say it. So I just wanted to be obedient in that, and that maybe this would help somebody in this group. If you've been through a divorce, my heart goes out to you. Because that person is still walking around and you have to grieve them alive. If you've lost somebody to cancer, and I know we have people in here, my heart goes out to you. Because I know the pain that is in that. If there's somebody watching that is trying to have a baby, I know that feeling. So, but like Brittany's video about witnessing the Lord in a tangible way, I do since, I'd say 2014. I had to let go of doubt that the Lord had good for me, because it was one thing after the next. It was like a 10-year gap or decade-long journey of just it felt like one painful event after the next. And it was just like, okay, I mean, nothing surprises me. Of course it's going to take us forever to have a child. Why not? Because everything bad, like in my mind, that's how I thought. But it was then when God identified and like put his finger on doubt. And I had to daily, hourly, minute by minute rebuke the lies that God doesn't love me like he loves other people, or that he doesn't have for me what he has for other people. And yes, I have a shower curtain behind me. I'm in my class room with a shower curtain to keep me safe from germs. We don't have students today, and so we're grading and getting stuff done, but I felt led to share this. So, but yes, I have witnessed and experienced God in ways. And when you do, if it's been a long time for you, or you're like doubting his presence, ask him to reveal himself and experience his presence in a tangible way. And I promise you, he will answer you. Because once you taste and see that the Lord is good, that's all that you want to seek after. It's like in our study when I read Enoch walked with the Lord, and then he just went away. He walked with the Lord for 300 years. And the other night, Brittany said, she's only been walking with the Lord that much, like that, for 4 years. And like, could you imagine what 360 something years would be like? And it just really, puts a fire in my heart. And these testimonies, this is my passion, and this is why I wrote the Bible study, Just Breathe, a modern day Exodus journey to revive your soul. This is why I wrote this devotion with Storms of Life, because everybody has pain somewhere or another in some time in their life. They're not exempt from it. No one ever will be. And if we could just help each other and not be afraid to tell our story and not be embarrassed and to own it, I feel like that's when the move of God can become tangible and multiply into so many people's lives. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to watch it, and thank you for all of y'all's comments in this group. And I encourage you that when the time is right and when the Lord presses in and you get nervous and sweaty and you feel like you can't do it, that is Him nudging you to do it. And I think we can learn a lot from each other because we're all in it together. So I'm excited to be in this group more than you know.